third-party support for the Switch, and we're still waiting for it, right? We're still waiting on some kind of big third-party announcement. We had, I guess you could count, Puyo Puyo Tetris as a third-party support. While it's not like a big blockbuster game, it's still there. But mostly we've been waiting for some sort of tangible bit of third-party support. Now, in your mind, Dave, do you think that they need third-party support to be announced at E3? Because I think if it's going to be announced, it's going to be at E3, right? They're not going to do it like tomorrow. They're going to wait till E3.
Yeah, I definitely think they need third-party support for the system.
You've been very vocal on this, right? About third-party support needing to be there.
Yeah, I have, and the reason why is because of the Activision Blizzard, EA. Activision just announced that they made $1.2 billion in revenue in one quarter, and EA last year made $4.3 billion in revenue, and Activision $6.7 billion. I looked it up, but they make so much money that Nintendo. It's important to have their big products on their systems if they can. It may be a little bit of an incentive for them to maybe pay a little bit for that if they need to, because the Switch, as far as the specs are concerned, we've heard from the Overwatch developers say that it doesn't meet the spec requirements, but we're not really thinking about it right now. They need some kind of incentive, and obviously the Switch it's really early in the lifespan of the system, but third party, like the big third party titles, really need to be there for the system to reach a wider success rate. Basically, it can sell to Nintendo fans like crazy, but how far is that going to reach? We don't know for sure, really. So it's something that they really need, for like Call of Duty or the next Battlefront, or things like that. Games that sell really big are really important for the system's success overall, because the success of Nintendo, they can make a lot of money on their own, but the overall success of their products can really be bolstered by third party. And we know that they want third party, because they themselves have hyped it, saying that we got third party on board when the system was first announced. But we haven't been hearing way too much from that since then. We've heard a lot of indie developers announce support, but as far as the big third parties, we haven't seen too much. So they really need something at E3, and we'll get to that.
Sure. Philip, what's your take on third-party support? Do you think Nintendo needs it, and do you think they need it at E3? So that would be a month and a half from now. Third-party support needs to show up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if the Wii U kind of is any evidence of sort of Nintendo's need of third-party support, I think we can just take a look at that right there, because that's really what that console, I feel like, needed the most in order for that drive to sort of come to it. And it didn't obviously work out for the Wii U. So I think that in order for the Switch to succeed right now, we're all having a lot of fun playing Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart and the indie games that are coming out in between releases like ARMS and Splatoon 2. However, I do think that in order, almost exactly like what Dave said, in order for the console to sort of spread even more and to maintain relevancy within the rest of the market amongst other competitors like Sony and Microsoft, they're going to need that third-party support. Otherwise, their own first parties can only take them so far. Like, how many different versions of a Mario game can we see? And what I mean? And we're only sort of seeing releases like Splatoon 2 and ARMS every once in a while. Like, new IPs are awesome, and I'm excited to play ARMS when that comes out soon. However, we're not seeing as many new IPs from Nintendo for them to just sort of live in their own ecosystem and their own world. They're master game makers. They're some of the best, if not the best, in my own opinion. And I have all the systems. I support all of the companies. I'm a big Xbox and PlayStation fan, but Nintendo has always been, in my opinion, different and has always been capable of thinking outside the box. Whereas the other systems and the other companies have only followed sort of what the masses have expected. So Nintendo, therefore, has, in a way, pushed away third parties with their sort of crazy ideas of like, what the heck is this? Who saw this coming, right? You know what I mean? Like after we had beasts like PS4 and Xbox coming into the market. So I don't know. I think that whether or not they like it, third parties need to come to the Switch. And I think they will, absolutely. I think we're going to see stuff at E3. I think that we're going to see stuff mainly during their direct, but on other stages like Ubisoft stage and EA stage, maybe we'll hear some stuff or just see some stuff kind of quietly like announced with the Switch logo alongside PS4.
Sure. So kind of like how they did with Siberia. Remember that, where they put that out and there was just a little Switch logo down there next to it?
Exactly.
So totally. That could happen. I mean, we could get to a point in 2 years where it's not a big deal if a third-party game goes to the Switch because it's almost expected. But I guess the real question is, now Nintendo seems to have third-party support in Japan, right? Like Japanese companies are at least working on games for them with like Square, and then you have like Shin Megami coming over. And I guess it also comes down to, do they need Western support, or can they just live with Japanese third-party support?
I think they can do pretty good with Japanese third-party support. Obviously, Square Enix, Capcom, Atlas, those companies like that. And they do really need some of those AAA Western third-party games because of the amount of money they make. If Nintendo, their business kind of shrunk a bit with the Wii U. So if they want to get back to expanding, they need to have some of those AAA games from the Western developers as well, because EA has so many different franchises. Activision Blizzard has so many different franchises, and none of them have been announced for the Switch. Besides, I think, what is it? The basketball game and Skyrim. Well, that's the other one, but they really haven't had much announced. FIFA, that's what it is. So
yes, FIFA's important. FIFA's more important than people think.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But they really need some of those franchises to bring in the revenue. As Nintendo fans, we could say, oh, they're fine. They don't have to have any third-party support. I'm going to buy just for Nintendo. But what we don't realize is that Nintendo is shrinking. It has been shrinking over the years a little bit. They need to expand and get that third-party support back so they can have that future of continued growth, basically.
But do you think Nintendo necessarily needs the exact same game that's on, say, the PS4 or the Xbox One? Do you think it has to be parity across the board? Or can they get their own version of, say, Call of Duty, and maybe it's not the exact same one, and then live with the Japanese third parties as well, being, their original games? Do you think it has to be the exact, like, does it have to be World War II across the board, or could they get, like, I don't know, a version of Infinite Warfare, or like remember how Assassin's Creed Rogue came out on the PS3, but say Unity came out on the PS4 and the Xbox One? Do you think they need do you think they need Unity across the board as well, or can they get an Assassin's Creed Rogue type game, you know what I mean, and still be okay?
Yeah, I would actually prefer that, to be honest. I would love to have it have its own exclusive game. Then you could really have something that's different from the other systems. That's the question, though. Will that happen? We don't know, right?
Right.
It kind of goes into the Nintendo business philosophy topic I was talking about in the list of topics. But Nintendo reminds me, and Sony too. This comparison, Nintendo reminds me of a law firm, and Sony is another law firm. Nintendo is known as the best lawyer in all of the world, right? And then, but in their law firm, they have a bunch of college graduates with them, and you could call those the indie developers. Sony, on the other hand, is known as a very good law firm, but they have some of the best lawyers with them, like 15 or 20 of them, right? And so who makes more revenue overall? Well, it's going to be the Sony firm, right? But everyone knows, though, that the best one is Nintendo. So that's kind of the situation. The elephant in the room is Nintendo is the best, right? The best developers make the best games, but where is the expansion? Where's the rest of it? If it's just Nintendo, are they going to keep shrinking, or are they going to keep expanding? So that's the question. So they do need that extra support.
Well, they definitely need that support, because to keep a consistent lineup throughout the year as a first-party developer is expensive, right? Because then you have to have multiple teams. Like, it's not like a game is started. You don't start creating a game at the beginning of the month and then release at the end of the month. You start creating a game, 2-3 years in advance sometimes, depending on the game. Like Call of Duty is now on a 3-year cycle because they need 3 different companies to start developing the game as soon as the other one comes out, right? So like Sledgehammer starts working on their Call of Duty 3 years ago, like to release this, this holiday. So from the day it releases 3 years ago is when they actually started making it, sometimes earlier than that. And that's where it's tough, because then you start kind of stretching your first party talent very, very thin. And that's the whole point of getting third party releases, because then you can spend time on something like Breath of the Wild, and you don't have to worry about taking people from there and they have to go help finish maybe an unannounced Kid Icarus game or something, and then Breath of the Wild either is slower going or it suffers. And that's I think that's the big outcry right now for third party support, is that, Philip, do you think they need that parity across the board for third parties, or do you think they can kind of live on getting almost a different type of release in the same family?
That's such a tricky question. I think it really sort of depends on that game, like, or what game we're talking about here. I think that if a Call of Duty comes out, I don't think that it can live as a separate Call of Duty, unless it comes out unless it's just a totally different thing. You know what I mean? Like, I know that isn't there a Call of Duty that's just like a free-to-play Call of Duty, or it's a multiplayer only Call of Duty that's on Steam?
I think
I know there's a Halo game over in Russia that's Halo 3 on the computer.
Right. And that's
so
that. Yeah, like there are those kind of weird games or whatever, but like, for something like the Switch, I think that Minecraft is kind of an interesting example, because like I know that the console versions or whatever are different from the PC version, right? So like,
yep.
Minecraft on the Switch has the exclusive like Mario stuff or whatever. You can't get it anywhere else. So I don't know, like it's almost like if you want to play that version of that game, then you get it on that. But as far as like polarity being between like consoles, I don't know if I was going in a different direction with that, but I think that
Dude, Philip, you got a great idea. You got a great idea, Philip. Put Mario in Call of Duty World War II.
Right.
Let him kill Nazis.
That's what I was thinking about. Is like, if that would even be possible, like to make Mario DLC for like Call of Duty, but I don't see that happening. I don't see Nintendo, putting Mario with an AK or like a little, whatever they had. So I don't know.
Let me see what Evan's thought is on that real quick. If he could maybe give us a little bit of his opinion on this matter.
But the need for third party, I mean,
right.
I feel like it's more of like a fine brushstroke. Like you don't need all of it, maybe hits here and there. Definitely try to force it to relate to what the system is, since they do have that on the go aspect to it being the major portion. A lot of the games we're talking about being like Call of Duty, Overwatch, stuff like that. I mean, you're not exactly going to be playing them on your 3G service or 4G service on your phone, like while you're traveling. So the focus on that might not be as great, but there does, I think, need to be like a cultural shift where the indie companies, their quality steps up and they focus on releasing specifically on the Switch, or have like more, I guess, exclusive things when released on the Switch. So, I mean, it might just need that little bit of a shift of like what people expect out of companies to accept more of like the little names over like, oh, you guys don't have a lot of Activision games or something, more than just being like, oh, you guys are getting this game that's kind of just popped up on everyone's radar and it seems amazing. So it's going to be a little weird, but it definitely involves too much stirring the pot right now for us to know, like, do they really need the AAA, or do they just need some of it maybe once in a while?
Well, you've also pointed out really well in the past, actually, about how the Switch has that like ad hoc, like local play, where you could have like 8 people on, say, a train in the same car, and everyone's playing Call of Duty in like a 4-on-4 match in the train, against each other. Or Rocket League even could do the same thing. And I think...
But I feel like they would need to program for that specifically. And I mean, it seems a little off. But, I mean, that feels like it would happen more with, let's say, like if Brawlhalla came to the Switch, like to ad hoc 3 other players in, so you could sort of do the mini Smash Brothers style fighting with new characters. Although, since it is heavily like Smash, they probably won't even touch that. But
yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it would be very specific, very interesting games. Like imagine for us, you and me at least, with like if you were just on a train and then someone popped up on a message like, you want to play Windjammers, and you're like, yes, I would from now till
I would like to play Windjammers, yes.
and you just ad hoc a Windjammers game local on someone else who's got that near you. That I feel like that might be a little more important for them, for like the quick and easy games to be accessible and to somehow integrate it into the overall system itself, so it's almost streamlined. Like you could be in the middle of Breath of the Wild and you'd see the little pop-up just to be like, want a quick game of such and such, and you're like, yeah, sure, why not? And it'd just be so much more interesting.
That's something that they should take advantage of. You're right, because it'll have people buying multiple cartridges, obviously, to play together. So even if you're the same house and you maybe instead of sharing that cartridge back and forth, if two people have a Switch in the house, maybe each person buys a cartridge, you know, and I think it's a little better that way rather than, I guess, trying to, because I know Halo got beaten down real bad recently for Halo 5 and stuff for not having all the split screen ability that it had. They made you buy multiple copies, but people won't complain as much if everybody who has a Switch in the same house has their own screen playing. I think it's just easier because they don't have to set up 8 TVs, you know? I mean, you should have seen the madness that was Halo back in the day on the original Xbox with cables and routers and stuff everywhere. Back then, it was tube TVs. So it was madness setting all that up. And I think if Nintendo could tap into that, it makes a lot of sense, right? If if I come over and I have my Switch, instead of me trying to haul my 50-inch TV over there or something, I just bring my Switch and you can play on your TV, and then maybe I ad hoc in with my handheld. So
yeah, I mean, we're using ad hoc wrongly in this sense, but like something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, like we connect wirelessly together, we play, and it's fun.